In this video, we'll be reviewing the disassembly and assembly of the second stage of the RIX 2PS compressor. Begin the second stage compression service. First, put on a pair of gloves. To remove the second stage for service, we must first disconnect the suction and discharge lines. Start with the suction line. The lines can be disconnected by using a 9/16 open box wrench to loosen the compression nut. Do not loosen or remove the 90-degree fittings from the head of the second stage. With the compression nut loosened, unscrew the nut completely from the 90-degree fitting. Using firm pressure, carefully move the stainless steel tube to the side of the fitting. Immediately after removing the tube, cover the open end of the tube with painter's tape or a clean plastic bag to prevent foreign particles from entering the oxygen line. The discharge line is disconnected the same way. At the top of the head, you'll find the second stage valve plug with a hex head. Loosen this part with a wrench before proceeding to the 4 studs. These studs secure the second stage compression unit to the top of the frame. To remove them, we will use a 1/2-inch wrench or socket with a ratchet and loosen the nuts. Do not lose these pieces. Place them in a clean area. Take off the cylinder head and place it upside down in a clean area. Under the head, you will find the cylinder liner. Gently remove the cylinder liner by lifting it up out of the cylinder. Inside the cylinder liner, you will find the brass second stage piston. This piston can be removed using a soft metal or plastic drift like a clean plastic pen housing. Do not use any object that might scratch the inside of the cylinder liner. Place both the cylinder liner and second stage piston assembly in the clean work area. Immediately inspect the cylinder liner for scratches and uneven wear. Scratches deep enough to be felt by your finger will likely require a new cylinder liner. This is the second stage piston assembly. It has 2 rider rings and 8 compression rings. When you remove it, look for any signs of scratching, marring, or uneven wear. There are 2 ways that the second stage can be serviced. The first way is to replace the entire assembly with a new pre-built piston assembly. This assembly comes in an insertion tool. The second way to service the piston assembly is to replace the individual pieces. Start by removing the rider rings. The rider rings are split and can be easily removed by gently pulling them open until they can be slid off. Like the rider rings, the compression rings are split. However, the split is much longer. To remove the compression ring, gently pull one end of the ring out and wind the ring out of the groove. Under the compression ring is an O-ring. This O-ring is a backing ring that can be removed with a hook or tweezers. Replace the individual components by rolling 8 Viton O-rings onto the sleeve insertion tool. Insert a bare piston into the sleeve insertion tool. Push the piston through the tool so that only the first compression ring groove is showing. Push the first O-ring off of the insertion tool and into the first compression ring groove. Push the piston further out of the compression tool until the next compression ring is showing. Then, push the next O-ring into the compression ring groove. Repeat this process until all the compression ring grooves have O-rings. Compression rings are installed in the opposite manner to which they were removed. Insert the thin end of the rings into the groove. Gently wind the ring into the groove to minimize bending. Make sure that the thin ends of the compression rings do not stick out of the groove. If they do, use scissors or fingernail clippers to trim the ends. Install the rest of the compression rings in a similar manner. To install the rider rings, gently spread the rider ring and slip it over the end of the piston until it fits into the groove. Once you have finished replacing all of the O-rings, compression rings, and rider rings on the piston, examine the piston. Some pistons may be marked with a T on one end to designate the top. Others may have a divot or no mark at all. In all cases, you can determine the top of the piston as the side where the holes are closest to the end. To install the piston assembly, either new or rebuilt, insert the piston into the insertion tool. Then, insert the insertion tool into the cylinder liner using a soft drift. To remove the valve assembly from the head, remove the head plug. Check that the Teflon O-ring on the plug is not damaged. Next, use a soft drift to firmly push the valve stack out of the body onto a clean work surface. This is the valve stack spread out in order. It consists of O-rings, reed valves, a valve plate, and a suction guard. There are two very small pins that align the reed valves. Start with the discharge side of the valve seat. Pay careful attention to the side and orientation of both the valve seat and reed valve. Using tweezers, place the dowel pin in the hole at the bottom of the cylinder head. Flip the valve seat and reed valve upside down so that the discharge side is facing the table. The reed valve is now in the correct orientation to be placed in the cylinder head. Rotate until the small hole aligns with the reed valve. Next, apply a small amount of Krytox lubricant onto the O-ring. Insert the O-ring into the valve head. Now, place the valve seat with the discharge side facing upside down into the cylinder head. Using tweezers or a small pick, rotate the valve seat until the hole aligns with the pin. You should feel the valve seat drop further into the cylinder head. It will stop rotating when properly aligned. Continue assembling the suction side of the valve stack. Place the O-ring into the groove on the circumference of the valve seat. Use a soft implement or tweezers to press the O-ring into position. Place the small dowel pin into the hole and push down. Stop and check the orientation of the reed valve. The longer end of the spiral should cover the holes that are not in the small pocket. Finally, install the suction guard and final O-ring. Put the cylinder liner with the piston back into the cylinder housing. Holding the cylinder liner down, rotate the flywheel to top dead center. This is the position where the piston is pushed to the top of its stroke. The piston may need to be pushed further into the cylinder liner to make contact with the rod. Using calipers, measure the clearance between the top of the cylinder liner and the top of the piston. The second stage piston should have 12 to 16 thousandths of an inch or 0.3 to 0.41 millimeters of clearance. If you do not have calipers, line up the top of the cylinder liner with the chamfer. To adjust the clearance, screw the cylinder housing in or out. Before measuring again, make sure to hold the cylinder liner against the cylinder and press the piston down against the rod. Once the proper clearance is achieved, the cylinder head can be mounted. Put the 4 nuts back onto the studs finger tight. With a torque wrench, tighten each nut in small increments. Skip across to each nut before increasing the torque. Stop when 15 foot-pounds of torque is reached. Reattach oxygen lines and tighten.